Hi, it's Claudia from Create with Claudia. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today it's all about clue number 2 of the Cotton Cuts So Sweet puzzle mystery quilt. So stay tuned. All right, I'm all set up and I'm ready to start clue number 2. I'm excited to see what this one looks like. I printed out my pattern. Here we go. It's for the small version. Again, I'm doing Churro, the small version. And here are all the instructions. So I'm going to put those aside, and I think I said it in the last video. I do this the same time you guys do. I haven't opened this. You can see it's still sealed, so it's as much a surprise to me as it is to you. And that's what makes this really fun. Now, Churro, I kept this. Remember I said last month, definitely want to keep this. I highly encourage it. This will help me with my fabrics and which fabrics I need. I wanted to show you one thing really quickly with clue number 1. I forgot to mention in the last video, make sure you number them and keep them together. That'll help you at the end of the time when we're getting ready to sew the whole top together. So I just use a Wonder Clip and I just put clue number 1, and those were the 2 blocks we did last month. And I'm going to do the same thing this month. I already wrote it out so I wouldn't forget when we have clue number 2. So that was the one thing I forgot to mention last month. But let's get started on clue number 2. All right, so I'm going to open this up. I love how these all come with the numbers on them. It's so helpful because it's so easy, as you can imagine, as some of you may know, it's really easy to get confused. So I'm going to set this aside, and here are all the pieces. Again, beautifully pressed, nicely pressed. They're all ready to go. I might press those out a little bit, the longer strips. I'm going to lay them out. Looks like we have a lot of squares this month and some smaller triangles again. Let's see, I'm just going to sort of lay those out like that. Not perfect, but I will go ahead and I'm going to touch those up a little bit with my press them really quickly with my iron. I don't want to do too much because they are nicely pressed. Just where it was folded there, I'm going to press those out really quickly. All right, so here's everything I need, and I'm going to go back to this map when I'm putting everything together. All right, so that's a little bit better. And now we're going to start sewing away. Woohoo, my favorite part. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the small triangle of fabric A, which was this sort of beige background. I'm going to use that to help me out. And sew it to a small triangle of fabric C, which was this one. And we used this last month. I love this fabric. It has such pretty colors in it. And you're going to repeat that 4 times. So basically we're going to make half square triangles out of these. And I will go ahead and do that. You are always using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you're going to sew. My fingers aren't working for me this morning. You're going to place them right sides together, and this beige one's a little tricky, so you got to watch it. It's a very pale fabric. You're going to place them right sides together, like so. Make sure everything evens up, lines up nicely, and you can see I love the way they cut these with those edges like that. It's really easy. It makes it so easy to line these up. It makes the sewing really such a breeze. And then you're just going to sew down this long edge, a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to do that now with all 4 of them. All right, so I've sewn those together with my 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to go ahead and press these open. And again, one of the really nice things they have with their pattern is they have pressing arrows, so you know which way to press. So in this case, I am pressing towards A, which is this lighter fabric. So I'm going to go do that really quickly, and when I come back, we'll start the next step. You will have 4 of these units, and they will measure 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches square. And the one thing, I don't know if you noticed when I did my video, I don't pin when I sew these together. I will say the fabric, because it's brand new and hasn't been washed, is a little bit slippery, so you might want to pin or clip them together. If you watch my videos, you know I am notorious for not pinning. It's just the way I learned, and so I don't pin a lot. I do pin, but I just don't pin certain things, and that's one of them. So, but if you prefer to pin or clip them together, and that helps you, that's the way to go. Alrighty, so these are all pressed. Now I'm actually going to move these out of the way so that it's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. because we're not going to use all those right now. So the next step we need, I'm going to pull my pattern over, is then after we've done these 4 half square triangles, you're going to lay it out like this, and then you need one of the squares of fabric A, and again that's that light beige. If you look at it closely, if you're using this colorway, it looks like it has books on it, and then you're going to sew this to that, and then you're going to press towards your half square triangle. So again, placing them right sides together, and you want to make sure you do that placement right with the diagonal there. And I just follow this. It's so helpful to have this handy pattern. Then you're just going to place those together, right sides together, and sew a 1/4 inch down this side. The 1/4 inch seam allowance, excuse me. So I am going to do that really quickly, and you're going to repeat that 4 times, so you're going to have 4 units that are going to look like that. Alrighty, so these have been pressed. I sewed them together and I pressed them the way they said towards the half square triangle. And now they're saying to put 2 of them together, sort of like we did last month. We're going to sew 2 of them together like this. So they almost look like, well, they're like, I always think that unit looks a little bit like a butterfly. So you're going to place them right sides together, and this is where I do pin. So I'm going to, and then we sew along the center edge, and you just want to pin right there so it doesn't slip. The nice thing is the way we press them, they're going to nest really nicely. Hopefully you can see that. Let me move it up to the camera a little bit. You can see how they're going to nest perfectly. So if you pin right there on that line, you shouldn't have any problems. And again, just continuing with that 1/4 inch seam allowance right down that way. And we're going to repeat it with the other 2. Alrighty, so here they are. Here's my 2 units like that. And now what I'm going to set those aside, because now we're going to start working with some other fabrics. We're going to start working with the larger triangles. So for the next one, let's see, step number 4 in this month is we're going to join a large triangle A to a large triangle E. So let me see. I don't think we've used fabric E yet. Ooh, that's that green background with some flowers on it. And then A is our favorite, that real pale beige fabric. All right, so we're going to do this 2 times. It's very similar to the other half square triangles we made. So right now I only need 2 of those light beige ones, and then 2 of these green ones. That's really pretty too. I'm loving this colorway. This is Sharon Holland for Art Gallery Fabrics. It's called Bookish, and I'm really falling in love with this fabric line. So anyway, what I'm going to do is sew these together just like we did the other ones. Place them right sides together, line them up nicely, and then sew a 1/4 inch along that long edge. And we're going to do that 2 times, and when you press them open, and in this case we again are pressing to the lighter fabric on this one, to the fabric A, you're going to they should measure 4.5 inches. Alrighty, so here they are, nicely pressed. Somebody asked me once if I use steam when I press. I do use steam. I love to use steam. I just find for me, I like it better. It also leaves a nice sharp press edge when I press. So, but let's get back to this. Now we're going to pull back those units we made earlier, and we're going to sew, let's see what it says to do. You're going to sew one of these, you're going to place it like this, and you're going to sew this to this. And then you're going to press to this half square triangle. So you're going to place them right sides together. So this is how it's going to end up looking. Always continuing with that 1/4 inch seam allowance. There we go. Now, mine's a little teeny bit off, no big deal. You might want to square up these units if you want to 4.5 units, straighten them up. I don't normally do that. It depends on how off it is. This is just a little bit off, so I'm not going to worry about it. But there we go. I lined those up, and in this case I will pin just so it doesn't slip since it's off a little bit. And I am now going to sew a 1/4 inch down that side. And I'm going to repeat it with both of these units here. Alrighty, here they are, looking good. They're coming together, and I have nice sharp points right there. I want to give you a little tip. I meant to do that. When you are sewing units like this together, I'm going to fold this one back up. And you probably noticed on one I didn't do it, on the other one I did. Let me use a pencil here to show you. Hopefully you can see that. I would sew on this side because that way you want to sew right on or just a hair above that point where those two seams join right there. That's going to give you a nice sharp point like that. So that's my little tip, is when you sew these, I would sew on this side, not this side. Always do that. That's sort of a nice little guide to get you a nice sharp tip. Hopefully, again, you can see that. I use the beige thread, so it's a little bit harder to see. All right, so according to the instructions, now we're going to use those strips that I pressed earlier, and we are going to add one. There we go. We're going to add one to the top of the unit like this. So it's going to look like this. Maybe I'll move this one out of the way. There we go. We're going to do that 2 times. I'm going to sew that to that, again using that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I would sew it so you can see this side, so you can get that nice, you can see that nice sharp point there and get that 1/4 inch, you can get that nice sharp point when they're sewn together. Alrighty, so here they are, nicely pressed. In this case, we pressed towards the strip. Nice and easy. And it looks like we're going to set these aside for right now. And we're going to go on to the next step. And in this one, we want these squares of, this is going to be 8 times we're going to do this, B to F. So let me go back here. B is this sort of beige with pinks in the Churro version. I don't know what your version is. And F is this brown with this geometric sort of triangular shape in it. So this is very easy. First thing we're going to do is sew a fabric B, if I can get them apart, to a fabric F. And we're just going to put them right sides together. These are going to measure, each square measures 2.5. Make sure we put them right sides together. And then we're just going to sew down that line 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we're going to do that 8 times. And there should be 8 squares of each fabric. So I'm going to go do that really quickly, and then we're going to press them. And in all cases, we're pressing towards F, that darker, this, in my case, the brown, depending on what your fabric F is, that's what you press towards. Alrighty, so these are pressed towards F, and the next thing they say to do is to sew these together like this. So they end up looking like that, basically like a little checkerboard or a 4-patch. Place your right sides together, and you're going to sew down that line 1/4 inch seam allowance, and again, because of the pressing, we have that nice ability to nest and get a real nice sharp point there. And again, here I am going to pin, just so we get that nice sharp seam there. Alrighty, so these 4 are done. They've been pressed as per the instructions. Basically, you're going to press, this would be the top. You're going to press down towards this bottom row, and here are my little four patches. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to do some more half square triangles. This time we're pairing up fabric A with this really pretty sort of pinkish rose, dusty rose color fabric D. You're going to do that 4 times, same thing. Right sides fabric together, line them up, and then a 1/4 inch seam allowance down there. Alrighty, so here are these pretty half square triangles with that gorgeous sort of dusty rose. Now it says to take one of these squares that we did earlier and sew it like this, lay it out like this with fabric B, F, and then, whoops, I almost did it wrong, fabric A in the corner. I almost messed that up. So you really do have, that's what's so great about these instructions is I just lay them next to me when I'm using them. This is how you're going to sew it together. And the one thing I did forget to mention is when you're doing this half square triangle here, you're going to press towards fabric D. But now we're going to do this part. You're going to lay them right sides together, line them up, and sew along this one line, this one side, and they fit. 1/4 inch seam allowance down that, and I'm going to go ahead and do that on, let's see, 4 times. So they'll have 4 units that are going to look like this one I just showed you. Alrighty, so here these are nice and pressed, and now I'm going to take, for the next step I only need 2 of them, but I'm actually going to work on 1 so you can see it. And then we're going to pull back one of these units we made earlier, and it looks like we sew this part to the top of this part that we just made. So we're going to sew it like that, and then we're going to place them, we're going to sew along that seam using that 1/4 inch, and I again would definitely pin here because you have nice. If you pressed the way they told you to, it's perfect. All right, and I'm going to pin along this edge, and then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to repeat that with the second one here, 2 more, and then we'll show you what clue 2 is all about. Here we go. Here are the 2 clues plus, so you're going to do I shouldn't say 2 clues, this is clue number 2. This is what it ends up looking like. You're going to press, when you press this, you're going to press to this bottom row, and then you're going to have 2 of these, which we actually don't do anything with this month. So I'm going to be interested to see what this ends up looking like. Like I said, I don't know what this ends up looking like, just like you don't. So I love puzzles like this. They're so much fun. But this is clue number 2. All right, so what everybody think about clue number 2? It's actually a couple different sections. Let me show you. The one turned out like this. Hopefully you can see it okay. The glare off my light, I'll have to tone that down a little bit next time. But this is clue number 2. This is March's clue. So this was actually 2 sections. So you had 2 units that look like this, and then 2 units that look like this. If you're not already sewing along with me, there's still time. You can go over to Cotton Cut's website. There is a link in my description of the video. Use the code CLAUDIASEWSWEET, and I have it up on the screen, and I will also put it in my description. You'll get a free gift if you sign up using that code. I'm having so much fun doing this. I hope you check it out. There are lots of different colorways. I know some have already sold out, and some are there aren't many left of them. I'm not sure where Churro stands. But go over there and check it out. I hope you are sewing along with me. It's lots of fun. And I also would love it if you'd post pictures and tag me, Create with Claudia, maybe over on Instagram or Facebook or something like that. I'd love to see your work. I don't know what color everybody's doing. I know I have a couple people doing blueberry, and there's a couple others too. But that's the one that comes to mind besides Churro. So go Team Churro, but go all the teams too. I can't wait to see all of the different colors. And I really can't wait to put this together. We still have 8 months to go, so I have to be patient. I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. I always appreciate new subscribers. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. And also ring that bell. That way you get notified every time I do a new video. And not only Cotton Cut's Puzzle Mystery Quilt videos, I do all kinds of videos. Try to post once a week, although I'm not always successful. And sometimes I do more than once a week. It just depends. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and have a great day.